The stage for the Columbia War has now been set after the administration of that university, that far-left New York City Ivy League university, issued another meaningless deadline. The school had given the students and faculty members supporting Hamas and screaming anti-Israel and anti-Semitic rants until 2 p.m. Monday afternoon to clear their encampment from the middle of the school. Today, well, more than 24 hours later, guess what? It's still there. Because once again, nothing happened. The 2 o'clock deadline came and went, and the New York City police stood there waiting for instructions that never came. And instead, they watched as hundreds of new protesters stormed onto campus, reinforcing the encampment. And this sets the stage for a long and violent encounter when the university finally was forced to move in and take out the trash. And just as I've been predicting, the anti-Semitic mob took its cue from the weak administration, moved in overnight, as you were watching there, to seize a building on campus, smashing windows, barricading the entrances. Hamilton Hall was the target of the attack, the building where the dean is housed. The takeover also involved the holding of a hostage briefly before the university worker was allowed to leave after screaming at protesters. Some say it was as many as 3 workers. Yes, the battle lines are being drawn. 21 House Democrats on Monday now issuing a demand for Columbia to clear the campus because in their demand letter, they explained that the Columbia administration has, quote, tacitly acknowledged that the encampment has created an impermissibly hostile and unsafe environment for Jewish students by resorting to hybrid learning, appearing to violate Title VI of the Civil Rights Code. In other words, instead of solving the root cause of discrimination and harassment that Jewish students faced on campus, the administration decided to segregate some students from campus altogether, which naturally created an unsafe environment on campus for all students there. The Democrats concluded that this is not going to fly. But this is just a small faction of the Democrats. Many others are openly hostile to Israel and to Jewish people in general. This is the holy war that is tearing the left apart. And I have been telling you this holy war would wreak havoc on the Democrat Party since it began, ever since the lines of division began to appear after October the 7th. Former Congressman Democrat Ted Deutsch slammed Bernie Sanders and AOC as they deny the war on Jews in America is happening at all. Listen to this.
Right now, what Netanyahu's right-wing, extremist, and racist government is doing is unprecedented in the modern history of warfare. Right now, we are looking at the possibility of mass starvation and famine in Gaza. When you make those charges, that is not anti-Semitic. That is a reality.
I want to get your reaction to what the senator said.
Yeah, I don't need Senator Sanders to lecture me about the reality of what's happening on college campuses. I spent time with students from Columbia, from Rutgers, from Brown last week, and it is not peaceful protests that has people screaming for more 10-7s, a 10-7 every day, 1,000 10-7s, 10,000 10-7s. It's not political discourse to tell Jews that they should be gassed. It's no free speech expression to say that Jews should go back to Poland, where 90% of the Jewish population was slaughtered during the Holocaust.
Remarkable, isn't it? Let me lay out some more examples of just how far the left has now gone and how it's starting to consume itself. This is something that has been very predictable and easily identifiable, because once a bully is allowed to terrorize one group of people and gain power from it, the appetite for more becomes insatiable, this appetite for destruction. And that's exactly what's happening. The left is eating its own. Far-left Senator Tim Kaine gave another weakling response about the radical takeover of college campuses by students supporting terrorism all over the country. Here's what he said.
Do you think the Biden administration, the president, has a role to play in this moment in addressing what we are seeing in these college campuses?
Kristen, it's a really good question. And, this is a tough one because people have a right to protest and make their views known. And almost, overwhelming percentages of people do that peacefully. But there are those who intimidate or harass others. There are those who speak in hate speech or anti-Semitism. And so giving people the latitude to do what they ought to be able to do and also trying to curb unacceptable behavior is tough.
Come on, that's just weak. That is weak. It's a weak answer to something that should be very easy for the former VP nominee to lay out in strong terms, but instead he just waffles because he fears the fringe in his party, people like AOC and Ilhan Omar, and yes, Bernie Sanders, among others, will crack back on him. Another Democrat representative, Summer Lee, defends the anti-Semitic uprising all over America and says this.
But this idea that every criticism of Israel is anti-Semitic is dangerous. There is a fair critique that we must make of every government, of every war, of every appropriation. And when we say that students who are engaging in the time-honored tradition of civil disobedience, of campus protest and action are inherently bad or inherently anti-Semitic, particularly as we see Jewish students standing in solidarity with Muslim students or Arab students and black students, when you're on the ground, you see that all of those students have been working together or have been learning and educating together.
Oh, please. And of course, this mind virus that infects kids, and her too, apparently, was passed along by anti-Semitic professors and teachers along the way that have called Israel an apartheid state or gone so far as to compare the Jewish state to Nazi Germany.